everyone, welcome to another episode of Poshteacher, and I am honored to have a very special guest today. Dr. Boffone, welcome to Poshteacher.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we are going to start, first of all, the question we always ask here at Poshteacher is, what was your aha moment that pushed you into the life of education?
Well, I think for me, my journeys are probably pretty common. I never intended to be a teacher. Even though I was always around educators growing up, my mom was a teacher for 20-something years. My dad was an education major. My sister was an education major in school. And so I was always around education, but it wasn't necessarily what I was interested in. What I was interested in was helping people and working with people. And as I got older, I realized I wanted to work with teenagers mostly. And so I got into teaching basically because I needed a job. And I knew that I could do it well. And I knew that I would enjoy working with young people. And now I'm here, 13 years later, I guess.
Wonderful.
Yeah. But it was something I always knew was there. It just, I wanted to be a filmmaker, for a long time. And then I guess now I make like 15-second films. Yeah. So I didn't have, an aha moment in the same way that I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It was just it was always in my life.
And what chose you to pick a major in Spanish?
Yeah. Well, I grew up a language nerd in general, but a language nerd especially. And when I got to high school, I started taking Spanish classes as most people do.
Yeah.
And it stuck, right? It was something that I liked. I was always good at math, and I find that languages are very similar to math, at least in the way like you use your brain, right?
I agree. Yep.
Yeah. And so it's just something I stuck with. And then as I got older, like graduated high school, went to college, I loved speaking a different language. I also speak French. I loved taking classes. I loved going abroad or speaking, Spanish, French in the US when possible. And so, yeah, it was just really, I was feeding the inner nerd,
Love it. And so, with the foreign language, because I'm myself a foreign language teacher, how do you get students to get motivated to learn a foreign language? Because I know that's a challenge, to get them to become intrigued and interested in it. What's your secret? Do you have a secret formula on how to help those foreign language teachers?
I've taught in a number of different states, and I find the thing that's always common with me has been me being excited about the subject makes my students excited, right? Yeah. And so I always say, like, it doesn't matter what I'm teaching, my students are going to want to take classes with me because they want to be around me, right? They like the way I teach. But now I'm in Houston, and so when I tell you, knock on wood, I've never once had to do that in Texas because I think students here, they see the value of learning Spanish because it is,
So it's real for them. It's more.
Yeah, it's real. And this is a Spanish speaking state, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have millions, of Spanish speakers. Latinx population is quite big here. And so I've never really had that issue. The other thing I'll say, I'm very lucky. I work at a foreign language magnet high school.
Can you explain
so the school, Yeah, so it's a massive, Bel Air High School, it's a massive comprehensive public school in Houston. About 3,500 students go to the school. And one of the programs is a foreign language magnet. And so students who don't live in the zone can, test in or apply, if they have a certain GPA in middle school, they can apply to the magnet program. And that allows kids who don't live in the immediate area of our school to come to our school. And so because of that, we have 11 languages.
11?
We offer 11. So because of that, so, it's Spanish, French, Italian, German, Arabic, Japanese, Chinese, German, I think I said German, Hindi, I'm Russian, and I'm probably missing one. But because of that, the students have a tremendous amount of choices, right? So I think because they have, when I was in school, it was French or Spanish.
Definitely. Right? Yep. Same way.
Yeah. And so because they have so many choices, I think there's a little bit more motivation than normal because I can say, okay, go take another language, go take something you're more interested in, you know? Yeah, so that's something that's pretty cool. And
That
I'm
is
lucky because
so cool.
that's not normal.
No, it's not. And do you have students taking even more than one language? Can they opt to take more than one?
Yeah, so the magnet students have to take 4 years of their like main language,
Okay.
and then 2 years or 1 year of their secondary language.
Oh
Okay,
my
but they
gosh.
can't double in French and Spanish because those are offered at every school, right?
Right.
So I have a lot of students who they might be Spanish, let's say majors, and then they do like a Russian minor, or they're Russian majors and they do a Spanish minor. So it's
Oh my
pretty cool,
gosh.
you
Oh,
know?
that's so cool for a language teacher. That's dreamy.
Yeah, and I mean, I
to
work
still-
with, I think there's 10 Spanish teachers at my school. So it's
Oh my
very,
gosh.
it's a good place for language.
Yes. You know, it sounds, you know, like in Europe, how students usually have to, you know, learn more than one language. And I think in the US, it would be exciting and good for us to
Oh,
expand
yeah.
that here, you know?
Well, I mean, especially now, and I mean, especially in the last, month with
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter movement taking off, at the end of the day, like what we do as language teachers is we teach a language, but we also teach about, like, cross-cultural understanding and empathy and like learning about other people that aren't yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we've been doing a lot of these things inherently, right?
I think that I think that's a smart way to do it through education to help
Oh,
change that
totally,
mindset.
totally.
Oh, thumbs up to that. Well, if someone wants to go into teaching, are there pros and cons that you've experienced?
Well, I think I'll be very honest. I think
Yeah.
the pro I most think about is the schedule.
Yes. I
I
love summers.
really, I mean, I think I would go to bat that we work as hard as anyone,
Yeah.
and we put in the hours, we put in the stress,
Yes.
which
Yes.
you can't really measure that.
No,
But I
you
mean,
can't.
we need that time in the summer to really recoup, relax, energize, get back ready to go. But I love those summers because I get to, travel. My family live in California and Louisiana. So I get to go spend, longer time there. So that's a pro. But I think, for me, a pro is really being around young people and being around teenagers. And I feel like I have my, finger on the pulse, or is that how you say it? Finger on the pulse of like what's hot in the US, right? Like, what are the TV shows? What's the music? What are the films? Like, what's happening? And so I see like my friends who, have office jobs or whatever it might be, who make more than me, right? And they, the culture has totally passed them by. And I'm like, no, man, I'm living it. I'm like seeing it every day. So that to me is a pro, and that makes it a lot of fun to me.
It is.
A con, it's extremely exhausting, April, May are really rough.
Especially if you have seniors. If you have a senior class.
Senioritis,
Yes.
And I mean, even this year when we were like home, we were home. I was home for April and May. It was still, I found it was more stressful, more exhausting than if we were in the building. So
I agree.
For me, that's a con. And I think if I could change anything about education, I think we're in school too long. Like the day is too long.
Our school day?
Our school day is too long, and I understand why it is, and I think a lot of us, culturally, we're realizing the role that school plays in our country.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the way around it is. Maybe it's more team teaching. Maybe it's longer, bigger breaks during the day.
Yes, I know Finland tends to do that. They have a very good model.
Oh yeah.
For education.
Well, I was saying, even if it was like every other Friday is a half day, something like that, I think would make a tremendous difference.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree. You had mentioned that you work with teenagers, and a lot of people probably go wide-eyed when you're like, wait a second, teenagers? What would you say to a teacher, a student teacher that's going into teaching? Why would you recommend working with teenagers? What's the plus of working with teenagers?
Well, I've taught in different capacities. I've taught third grade through college.
Oh.
I mean, third grade, it was as a teaching artist. So I was there once a week, or I've done summer camps. And I've taught college since, I don't know, 2009 or so, off and on. But the thing for me about teenagers and specifically high schoolers is it's such, I mean, it's almost cliche to say, but it's such a formative time. When you even when I taught middle school, they're still, they're still kids.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get to high school, like they're really adults. They're like little adults.
Yeah.
And so because of that, and they're starting to question themselves for the first time, I think. They're starting to question their family, their community, the things they've taught to be or known to be true throughout their lives,
Yeah.
They're starting to question them. And so I think it's a really important space to be able to provide like positive role models and really, guide them to a space to have those conversations about whatever they're figuring out,
Yeah.
And so it's powerful. It's
Very,
it's
as a
fun,
teacher, your role is elevated, of great importance if you're,
Yeah, and I mean, I think Christopher Emdin, he's one of my like scholar gurus, but he says you can't. I don't know what the exact quote is, but it's something like you can't teach people that you don't. If you don't care about their culture, it's learning about them first, learning about their culture first, and then it's content.
Wow.
And that's where the change happens.
So that's the way to connect with students. Yeah.
Right.
So you have a doctorate, and what led you to higher education? What was your motivator?
Yeah. So when I was in fourth grade, we did this like end of the year project that was a book about us, right? Like a book about Trevor. And one of the things I put as my 5 goals in life was to get a PhD. Now, when I was in fourth grade, I was 10. I didn't know anyone with a PhD. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew I wanted it. I just wanted it, right? Like, that sounds cool. And I was around teachers, and I was like, college sounds cool. I like to teach college. And so I just, when I graduated from undergraduate, I taught for a year in high school, and I loved middle school, high school, 8th grade, 9th grade. And I loved it. But I realized I wanted something a little bit more intellectually engaging at that point in my life. And so I was like, I'm going to go to grad school. So I went to grad school and I finished in 2015, a PhD in Spanish. And my focus was on Latinx, like cultural studies, like theater, literature, film.
Oh, nice.
And and I still teach at the University of Houston. I teach 1 class a semester. And I write every day. And so my students, like, they'll see me writing before school. They're like, what are you working on? And I'm like, I have this book I'm doing, or this article. And so they ask about it all the time, which is kind of fun.
Very cool.
And so it really was, and I was very lucky to have supportive parents who never once, tried to get me to do something that was more, lucrative, They were very like, do whatever you want to do. And so I did it. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, and here I am.
But you're happy.
Yeah, and I was always interested in learning, and so something I try to do whatever class I'm teaching is really try to make my students understand that they can be lifelong learners, Yeah. And I think a lot of the learning comes outside of the curriculum even,
Yeah.
So like I remember my first year at Bel Air High School, I had like a YA book club. Like very unofficial. It wasn't like an official club, but it was some students in one of my classes who were reading. And I was like, oh, I want to read those books. And they were like, okay, let's read them. And so we read them together. We talk about them, a few times a week during class. And just stuff like that, I think is something that could really situate someone to be a lifelong learner,
Oh, yeah. It's and it's empowering for them,
Oh, yeah.
It's empowering. So what is one of your latest works that you have published? Anything that you're really like, ooh, I just love what I did or what I wrote?
Yeah, so I just co-edited a book called Nerds, Goths, Geeks, and Freaks, Outsiders in Chicanx, Latinx, Young Adult Literature. So I co-edited that with a colleague friend of mine at Fresno State. And that's a collection of essays about young adult literature and nerds, outsiders, weirdos, people that are different. And that collaborator, we're actually now working on a book on Latinx teenagers across like different pop culture, like musicals, TV, film. So we're doing that now, and that's going to be like an authored book, not an edited book. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with teenagers. I'm also working on a book about dub smash and TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's about me, it's about my students, it's
Oh my
about
God. Let's lead into that since,
yeah.
yes, you are a TikTok star. You've been approached nationwide for interviews, and the world just loves hearing about how you, well, about your fame on TikTok. Can you tell us how it started?
Yeah, so something I've always done, I've always been interested in, learning about my students and really bringing that into the classroom. And so one of those, I've always loved to dance. And so when I started working at Bel Air in 2018, I noticed that the students I felt very behind on the culture. I was like, what is happening? And so they started, but I was asking them, and rather than say things, if they would play a song or show me a dance move, rather than uh, disregarding it or saying like, oh, that's not dancing. Like you call that dancing, or, that's not rap music. Tupac was rap, which is what a lot of teachers or a lot of adults do, right? They
Yep.
normalize it in a very kind of like belittling way. And so
Yep.
because I think my students saw a genuine interest, they started teaching me about it. At the same time, in the fall of 2018, TikTok came to the United States and Dub Smash relaunched. And so we started making videos, these short 10-second, 15-second dance videos, like once a week or so on these apps. And the students would post them, and it was what it was. And then in February 2019, I started my own account on Instagram and to post these videos. And then it just, immediately went viral. And it went viral like the day I posted my first video. And since then, it's been this like whirlwind. I always say it genuinely, from a year before the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
it felt like a movie. Like when I look back at that time in my life, it feels like I'm in like a movie, right?
It's surreal, yeah.
Because we were doing like these really, and I get a lot of attention, but if you look at my page and you watch the interviews or whatever it might be, my students are right there.
Right.
And so, we've been on Good Morning America,
Inside
ABC
Edition,
News,
right? Yeah.
all over, right?
Yeah.
Which has been a lot of fun. And I always try to provide opportunities for my students and really use that, clout or use that power to really bring things back to the classroom. So for instance, I've had clothing companies, like t-shirt companies, reach out to me like, hey, can we send you a shirt? And I'm like, yeah, send me 10,
Oh, so
for my
everybody's
students, right?
included. Yeah.
Right. And so I've been able to, it's small things. It's swag. It's like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, but it really has helped to create this like family atmosphere in my classroom, right?
Yeah.
Where and they know it's not just me, it's us. And we're doing these really cool things. And I think the thing that that really I'm most proud of is that if you watch us work, if you talk to my students, if you interact with us, you'll see no one talks about fame, no one talks about followers, no one talks about how many people are watching the videos. It's really all about having fun at school and doing things that historically students are told not to do. Right?
Yes, having fun at school. What kid would say that?
Right, and it's the school system. I work with primarily students of color, and the school system, no matter, or public school system at least, is really about acting a certain way, and being a certain type of person. And so
or
for
learner
me, it's like,
too, right? They put everybody in a box.
Oh, totally. And so for me, I'm really trying to, provide a safe space, like an actual safe space where my students can come in and bring those parts of their identities, right? Bring their music, their dancing into the classroom.
What qualities do you think that you're giving, or tools for life, are you giving your students via doing your TikTok family? What things do you think you're giving them?
I don't want to say I'm giving, but maybe providing a roadmap for them to embrace.
Good.
Like their agency, right? So one of the things we do, for instance, is most of the time my students pick the music, they pick the dance, and they teach it to me. Or they teach it to the group of us. And so we're flipping the roles, right? I'm the student, they're the teacher. So they have to develop like a leadership language, right? A way of talking to each other, a way of talking to me, right? And so that to me, I think is different.
Yes, it is.
You know, and if you watch, we're side by side, right? These videos, or I'm in the back, right? If there's more than like just me and someone else.
Right.
So it's really about giving them roadmaps to leadership, right? And leadership, I think a lot of people think of it as, when you're in high school at least, you think of leadership as you're the club president or the captain of the like basketball team, right?
Yeah.
And this is really leadership in a way that I think can really set people up for their careers, like college and their careers. Because at the end of the day, like no matter what you do, you have to be able to talk to people, work with people who are different than you, teach things. Everyone teaches things.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
We do it better than most, but you know,
yeah.
but most jobs you have to be able to do those things. And so I'm trying to, you know, I don't think the students realize in the moment like they're learning.
Oh yeah, because it's fun, but they're learning.
Right, because it's fun. But it's really, you know, that's what it is. And as a result, those students have more buy-in in Spanish class.
Oh gosh. So is everybody fighting to get into your class?
I mean, they cannot request teachers.
Oh.
That would be a problem.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, they're happy. Like I have issues we all have issues with students, right?
Yeah.
That don't, like, not everyone loves me, right? But because of this, I have very little, like, I don't have to trick them into liking me or like doing my work at the beginning of the year. They come to class and they're like, yes, I'm in this class, I'm ready to go, you know, which is very cool. And I'm very lucky to have, you know, because I know it's not always like that.
No, but that definitely helps with discipline issues, classroom management, I think.
Yeah.
Because you understand them, you're part of their world. So I think that minimizes things. You know, I know like when I attend students' events or, you know, their plays or outside of school events, you see how they behave in the classroom. It's like, wow, she cares about my life, so I'm gonna care about her class, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, I will tell any teacher, like, go to a volleyball game, go to a basketball game, and it will change everything.
Completely.
You know?
I agree 100%. I've seen it.
And I mean, you have to, part of, you know, the longer you teach, the better you become at it. But like, it's all about like figuring out who your leaders in the room are, and then like engaging with them, right? It's like once you find that like leader, you just the dominoes start to fall if you can make that connection, you know?
Yeah, let's see. When's your book coming out, Dr. Boffone?
The Dub Smash one, and it's about teaching too, and that'll be probably next year.
Good.
It's under review now, so.
Good. Well, we'll have to chat next year then about it. Well, so obviously students always think that we're always in the classroom and that's all we do, but do you have another life?
So when I do theater, I mostly produce. So for the last 3 years, I've produced a pretty big Latinx theater festival in Houston every winter, spring, and with play readings, new plays, this big event. And so I've done that, and I've gotten students involved in that, which has been a lot of fun.
Well, here at Poshteacher, we have La Manzana, which I don't need to translate for you. So,
okay.
Yes, and we have questions in here, so just on-the-spot questions. So, obviously, I will pick for you, or you can pretend that you're picking. So, muy bien, and here we go. So, all right, did you have an LOL so funny moment in the classroom?
Oh my gosh. I fall a lot. Like I trip on things, I fall. So I don't know if there's been like one specific moment. I do remember something happening like a year ago, and my students always bring it up, and I cannot remember what exactly happened, but I remember it involved me falling.
Related to falling.
Like I was trying to like go to the door like quickly, and someone was like standing, and I just tripped and like went down. But whenever I fall, I don't, it's like a boom, 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 like a running fall. Yeah, it's like a cartoon. So, I mean, those are always funny moments. Oh, I remember, this is it. So, and it's involving falling. So my first, I guess it was like fall 2018. I didn't have a classroom. I was going to different rooms every period.
Okay.
And I was in one room, end of the day, and she had a table with a TV on it, like a massive TV. And on that table was also stacks of like Xerox copies. right, of papers, like packets and stuff. And I was trying to put up like a large sticky post-it of a verb chart, like Sarah or something,
Oh.
on the wall behind it. And so I went to go do it, and the teacher who was in the room, who's a very good friend of mine, she said, "Don't stand on the table. It's not going to hold you."
Oh,
And I said, "Okay." And then I stood on the table, and the table like came crashing down. The TV, it was like a 60-inch TV. It fell on me. The papers all flew off, and I couldn't get out. I was like strapped behind the wall. And
that's
like, entangled. I'm laughing, like the students are laughing, and then I'm like,
oh,
okay, I
the
need
students
help.
were there already. They were in the class.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
So they had to like like pull me out of this like
Serious?
corner, and then it was a mess. The table legs were not very strong, but we ended up, the whole day was a wash, right, that period, because we had to like rebuild the table, and like the students were helping me. But it was funny, and we laugh about it now.
Oh, it'll go down in history. Did it go viral or no?
No, thank goodness, no.
Poshteacher, we also talk about how you present yourself in the classroom is important. And do you think it's important what teachers wear creates a different tone in the classroom? What are your thoughts on it?
I think, and I'm kind of laughing because I don't think of myself as like a poshy teacher or fashionable, but I do think, I think it's important to be authentic. And I think that's something I write about a lot. And when I talk to teachers, I really promote is students appreciate authenticity and they see through it, right? And so I think what you wear does make a difference, whether it's very casual or more formal, right? As long as you're being yourself, and being true to who you are. And I remember my first year teaching, I like went and bought all kinds of, I think my parents took me actually. My mom, like, she loves this stuff, but to buy clothes, I'm like, I need teacher clothes, like nice clothes, right? I also had like lost a lot of weight, so I didn't have anything that fit. And so my first year I wore very like, like button down shirts, like dress pants. Like I was very like that kind of teacher, which I don't know that it was me, but that's how I dressed, right? And then now I dress like that like once a week. And then the other days of the week, I have to be comfortable to dance. I'm very honest with you.
Oh, yes, that makes sense. Yeah, you don't have ripped pants.
Yeah, I have ripped pants. I ripped a pair of pants this last year.
Oh, you did?
Right off the back.
Oh my gosh.
So I just tied a sweatshirt. But so now I'm boring. I wear school shirts, like t-shirts from different clubs, and usually like jeans or like khaki pants or something that goes with it, and tennis shoes. Now, like once a week, if the weather's nice. Also, like I'm in Texas, so our building gets hot too. So when the weather gets nicer, I'll like dress up a little bit more and like wear a sweater. The lanyard. And I think the lanyard, it's funny, it's like, okay, the lanyard. But to me, it's so important to my identity as a teacher. I wear a Harry Potter Ravenclaw lanyard, so my students know that's something I'm interested in. On the lanyard, I have flair, I have buttons. So I have LGBTQ, like a pride flag. I have a bisexual pride flag, trans pride flag, a few other things, right? And so my students, when they see it, they know this person's an ally to this. This is something they're interested in. It gives me a bit of a personality, right?
Oh, I love it. Oh,
so that's just something, and other teachers at my school do it too, or any school, really.
Yeah.
But to me, like and I keep it in my car, and so I don't feel complete. And then when I get to school, I put it on, and I feel like I'm ready to go. It's like my armor. Right?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
But it allows me to have some personality, no matter what I'm doing. And like something that people always comment about in my videos, especially my friends, they love the lanyard because the lanyard's like swinging around and like, so that's my poshiness.
I love that. Are there any last words that you would like to give our teachers? Advice, your famous quote? It's all on you. Platform's on you.
So last words. I mean, this is not my words, but it's something that I always really go with or try to live with is, or embody through my work, is to be the change you want to see in the world. And I think this was like Nelson Mandela said this, or someone far greater than me, but be the change you wish to see in the world, right? And so for me, like, that's what I try to teach my students. That's what I try to do is, it's not enough to wait for someone else to do that change, to make the change. We have to really take it upon ourselves, right? And so, whether it's students, and I think as students, oftentimes they might not realize they have power or they have, the chance to be change makers. And so really giving them these roadmaps and showing them that they have the voices already to do whatever they want to do, right?
And how can they go about that? Because I was actually talking to young people today, about what's going on in the world and some issues, and they had such great ideas and so intelligent ideas that you're like, wait, this has to get to someone on top, and they have to hear what these young people just said. How can these students go beyond the walls of their home or their classroom and put that voice out there? What can they do?
Well, I mean, I think it's easy to get seduced by the end result and like the big picture of the goal, right? End of the goal, the end of the rainbow, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think what I always tell people is start small, start manageable, right? So, something that a lot of teens have been able to do quite successfully is create social media accounts for various things, whether it's making memes on Instagram or Twitter with whatever it might be. I mean, you could do something like a Black History Twitter, right? Where it's every few days you put like some sort of fact on Twitter, right? Those are easy things to do, and they can grow into something larger, right?
Yes, it's
those are easy things to do, right?
Yeah.
That you can control, it also creates a community, it creates a platform, it creates opportunities for other things, I think. So I mean, those are just like things I'm thinking, is really leveraging the tools we already have.
Very wise words. Well, it has been a true honor and pleasure, and just hearing about your professional life. Thank you for sharing all that and your successes. And we need more teachers like you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is great, and I think you've inspired a lot of teachers in many different ways. I think you've really, and students. So thank you so much. It's been an honor, and we're definitely going to have you back. We want to hear about all your accomplishments that are in the making. So I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Poshteacher.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time. Bye-bye.